Hey, what's up you guys? Today's video is about the war in Ukraine. For some weird reason, this video I had about the Ukraine was one of the most popular videos on my channel, probably because I grew up there. This is no longer a headline in the news, and that's concerning because with all the craziness in the world, the war was one of the most brutal wars in the world is not making headlines. Now, what's the status quo is that pretty much neither Ukraine nor Russia is able to advance. They're stuck in no longer are able to advance any territories. Both sides had significant losses considering that the population of Russia is 3 times bigger than the population of Ukraine. That's really big losses for both sides. Although Russia probably lost probably 3 times, maybe even 4 times more. Although Russia had 3 times, maybe 4 times more in losses overall. Ukraine were able to get some territories back after the war started. It's been going to be almost 2 years very soon. The plan of Ukraine was to do the counterattack and regain almost all territories that they lost. They were trying to do it during the summer. Then they were thinking about doing it during the spring. But the problem is that Russia has constant supply of the soldiers. They just send random people to the war, and it's just a grinding machine. They keep dying there, and Russia sends the new ones. This kind of reminds me of the strategies of World War II. Stalin did that. The Soviet Union lost around 27 million people during the war, including 8.7 million military and 90 million civilians, while Germany had only 5 million losses. So this pretty much shows the difference, almost 6 times more people, every 6 Russian just against 1 German. I think the similar situation is, or close at least, is repeating nowadays in this war, which is very tragic because both sides, innocent people are dying. But of course, what is obvious is that the violator and the aggressor in this war was clearly Russia. I think it was supposed to never start actually. I had a video where I was describing the reasons, in my opinion, why it started. Russia has huge economic and business interests in Ukraine. When this revolution started to happen, when the Ukraine was leaning more towards Europe, they were really scared. Actually, they were losing some business investments in Ukraine, and obviously, the main reason for the war is money. That's how it started. Although each side have their own story, Russians saying that they're protecting the Russian-speaking population, it actually backfired. Now, pretty much everyone who spoke Russian in Ukraine, they're scared, or they don't really want to speak Russian anymore. They speak Ukrainian. The Ukrainian plan was to counterattack and get more territories, which actually never happened. Instead, they got stuck. Recently, they actually lost a couple of minor territories. There was no progress in the war from the Ukrainian, and that actually created lots of criticism until the war in Israel started. What happened is many Western leaders started to criticize, and recently, I believe yesterday, the President Zelensky declared that there would not be elections. That's going to be a huge issue because everyone was seeing Ukraine as a representation of democracy fighting against the authoritarian Russia, but canceling elections, criticizing his own soldiers, I don't know. I think Zelensky is making really big mistakes that would cost him a lot. He would probably have to sign some kind of peace treaty, maybe someone else on his behalf, but what would happen, I guess, there would not be a winners. There will be some kind of status quo until the new government will take over or a new president in Russia. Russian side plan was to take obviously more lands, which also never happened. And reality is that Ukraine is much more stronger, but they had huge losses. I think Russia would not be as strong economically as they were before for at least the next 10 years. And for Ukraine, there will be huge economic work to be done. For other countries, Europe and America, there will be good economic recovery because there will crazy money spent to the war in Ukraine. I expect Russian stagnation for the next 10 years. Pretty much Russian economy already wasn't really good. I don't know if I told about my experience. Once I took a train from Ukraine to Russia, and literally when you close a border, you can see that there are no roads, there's no infrastructures in many places in Russia. And actually there is a saying in Russian language that there are 2 main problems in Russia. There's a stupid people and roads. No roads, no infrastructure. It was 100 years ago. If you would go to the most cities, I want to say that those who have less than 1 million population, not Moscow, not St. Petersburg. Most of the cities, they don't really have infrastructure. People are living below the poverty most of the time. Most of the infrastructure was created during Soviets. They never upgraded actually. The Soviets, yes, they were crazy power. Everything at their disposal. They had a human power, they had intellectual power, they had economic power, they had a will. Nowadays, Russia doesn't have most of it. They are just oil producing state. The only thing that they were relying for last, I want to say 10 years, they were not able to create a real infrastructure. Maybe just the space industry and the weapon production. The other thing that I've heard was shocking for me. I don't know if it was, I didn't fact check that, but looks like United States just passed sanctions against the space industry of Russia. So it appeared that the United States were buying the parts for the space rockets from Russians, which is really weird and I would never expect it. But apparently Russia or Soviets were able to advance in the space industries. United States was using those products. Possibilities for United States, I think it will be mostly in Ukraine, because Ukraine had a huge resources, agricultural resources, one of the biggest producers of the wheat, oil. After the recovery, I think obviously there was a land lease agreement between Ukraine and the United States, and that will eventually pay off. Obviously, it will have a negative consequences for Ukrainian economy. Japan was also ruined, but they managed to become one of the 5th biggest economies in the world. We never know. Maybe it's even for the sake of Ukraine. There will be also consequences for the real estate market. Unless the Fed will not slash the rates, I think their real estate will go significantly up after the war will finish. So my prognosis is that it will definitely have to end to 2024, although we don't know exactly when. My prediction is up to Zelensky actually to finish the war, because Russia is, I think they already regret that they started all this mess. There are two options. Either he will end the war after the United States elections, which would not be a really good option for him, because if the Republicans will take over, they will just cut the funding and they will have to agree on all the terms that the Russians are going to offer. In my opinion, the best thing to do would be to end the war right now. Everybody's fed with the war, especially Ukrainians. I've read the statistics, every 5th Ukrainian man is dead already, either dead or wounded. It will have significant ramifications for future of the nation. I think it's a good time to end the war right now, although the Ukraine demands Russia to back out of all the territories and pay the restoration. Obviously, it's not going to happen. But the best case scenario for Ukraine, in my opinion, would be to get what they can get from Russia, which I don't think that will be much, probably minor territories that they took over. They actually have the access to the Black Sea to have the bigger access, or to take the lands that were taken closer to the main harbor regions. For the Russia, it will be, any case the war will stop, it will be a big win for Russia, because they're constantly losing. It's like a leaking bucket. Hope it will end. Hope people will stop dying, especially innocent people, women and kids. This is the worst thing in all wars. Anyways, let's not lose the hope. Pray for Ukraine, pray for people, pray for everyone who is and are suffering in the wars. Have a good one. Bye.